Hello, my name is Pippa Steele and I'm here to introduce you to some free teaching materials on writing in the ancient world. I run a research project at Cambridge University called Contexts of and Relations Between Early Writing Systems. That's the CRUISE project for short. We're interested in both the concept and the practice of writing, and also the way in which writing developed and spread around the ancient world.
We're focusing on the broad Eastern Mediterranean area in the 2nd and 1st millennia BC, at the intersection between Greece and the Aegean, Western Asia and the Levant, and the coasts of Northern Africa. This was a region marked by a very high level of mobility and cultural contact, which plays an important role in the development of writing. Shortly, I'll tell you about the free teaching materials we've made available, but first I want to talk a bit about the history of writing and why you might want to introduce this topic into the classroom. The history of writing is a story of cultural contact and exchange taking place over thousands of years. Many of the world's modern alphabets, for example, started out from a moment of experimentation nearly 4,000 years ago, when speakers of a West Semitic language, one related to Hebrew and Phoenician, more distantly to Arabic, were inspired by Egyptian hieroglyphs to create their own new writing system. That writing system was passed on by Phoenicians and Greeks, Etruscans and Romans to give us the alphabet used for English and many other languages today. But it was passed on in other contexts too. Many other systems in use today ultimately derive from the same origins, including Arabic, Hebrew, Cyrillic, and of course Greek. We can study each separate writing system in its own right. There's a lot to learn, for example, from the way in which each system encodes a different language in different ways. Encoding is a good way of thinking about it, because a writing system is just like a code, where sounds and words are represented by symbols. That also makes it a very good exercise for thinking about codes and decipherment in the classroom. But it's also vital to remember that writing is something people do. It's a practice, an element of culture that exists as just one part of people's lives. It exists alongside industry and trade, family life and art. If you only think of writing as a linguistic code, then you're missing something, because writing systems cannot exist without the people who create, develop and use them. Today's alphabets would never have reached us if it were not for the people who shared and transmitted them over the millennia. This is one of the missions of the CRUISE project, in fact, to study writing in the ancient world in a way that encompasses both linguistic and practice-based approaches, and to bring those different approaches together to paint a bigger picture. The concept of writing was invented independently several times in different areas of the world. Mayan writing in Central America and Chinese writing in the Far East were independent inventions, as were cuneiform in Mesopotamia and Egyptian hieroglyphs in Egypt. One of the reasons why we chose the Eastern Mediterranean, Near East and North Africa as a focus for our teaching materials is that this is an area we are working on at the CRUISE project. Zooming in on this region gives us an opportunity to observe how and why writing was passed on from one society to another, and how different societies developed sometimes very different attitudes to writing, even when they were in close contact with each other. Now, why might you want to introduce the history of writing into the classroom? This is a topic with very wide potential appeal because it concerns a whole range of issues like literacy, cultural contact and diversity. One important point is that we know the ancient world and the historical world mainly through writing. We can't go and talk to ancient people, so one of the main ways we learn about their lives is to read what they wrote down. But the nature of those written records is closely connected to the practice of writing in society. Who can write? How do they write? What do they write about? These are factors that can be very different from one society to another, but they're also factors that are fundamental to the nature of the surviving evidence about the ancient world. Writing traditions can be very distinctive and individual in different societies. For some, those traditions are closely connected with cultural identity, and by studying writing in ancient societies, we can open a window on wider issues of identity, diversity, and cultural contact around the ancient world. Our teaching packs present materials on 5 different ancient writing systems, with an aim to provide you with enough to run a class on each of these systems, or to teach them in some other context. In each pack, you'll find information sheets and activity sheets, along with maps, glossaries, and cartoons. We hope that these can be adapted to different teaching situations, depending on target age and also on available time and resources. The 5 writing systems that we've chosen for our resource packs are ones that we're working on at the Cruise Project. Firstly, we have the Greek alphabet, which is perhaps one of the more recognisable writing systems, and of course is still in use today. It was invented in the early 1st millennium BC, and at that point it appears on lots of different types of objects, including lots of pottery. Secondly, we have Linear B. This is an earlier writing system. It was in use during the 2nd millennium BC, but it was also used for the Greek language for a much earlier form of it. Most of the surviving documents in Linear B are clay tablets that were used for administrative records, so they list things like numbers of sheep or people working in different industries. Moving eastwards, our 3rd writing system is Phoenician. This was an alphabet, but an alphabet that didn't write vowels. Its origins are in the 2nd millennium BC, but it's better known from slightly later times. And in fact, the Phoenician alphabet, which was used by traders operating around the Mediterranean, provided the inspiration for the Greek alphabet, which was developed from it. Our 4th writing system is a type of cuneiform writing that was used at the city of Ugarit during the 2nd millennium BC. That's in modern-day Syria. At Ugarit, they developed an alphabetic system from earlier forms of cuneiform. Cuneiform takes its name from the wedges from which each sign is composed. These wedges were usually impressed into clay tablets. Finally, our 5th writing system is perhaps the most famous of all, Egyptian hieroglyphs. These were used in Egypt over thousands of years and are famous for their sort of pictorial nature and the way they were used in monuments and in tombs. We also have an extra pack that includes a few other writing systems that might be of interest, as you'll see. We hope that you enjoy the teaching materials that we've put together. But before I finish, I want to mention some other ways in which the Cruise Project might be able to help you. If you're interested in writing in the ancient world, we have other resources that might be useful to you. The first thing you can do is check out our blog. We have lots of articles going back over the last few years about different aspects of writing in the ancient world. I hope some of them will be of interest or stimulating for topics that you raise in the classroom. This is a good way of following up on a particular topic in depth, All can also be a good way of bringing in other perspectives. There are some writing systems, for instance, that don't feature in the teaching materials that you might want to follow up on. And sometimes there's a bit of Lego too. We have a virtual museum display that you can check out. You can find the link through the blog. This started out as a real museum display, which was done at the Fitzwilliam Museum in Cambridge in partnership with the Fitzwilliam and the British Museum. At the time, we had 14 objects that you could come and look at. Now you can have a look at them online and you can read in-depth articles about each of the objects. We also have a whole range of Write Your Name sheets that show you how to write your name in a different writing system from the ancient world. Online, there's a wider range than the ones that you can find in the teaching packs. We also have a range of Write with Cruise videos that show you practically how to try writing your name in one of these systems. And don't forget to try your hand at some practical epigraphy. We have a few more articles on the blog that can show you things that we've done when we've had a go. Writing in clay is always a favourite for us, and you can have another video as part of this workshop presented by Philip Boys that shows you how to run an activity session and do some practical epigraphy of your own. One of our favourite practical activities involves baking. Now, this might be something that's difficult to introduce into the classroom unless you have the facilities for doing so, but it does make a good holiday project or just something that you might want to do at home for yourself. Using a kind of cookie dough, you can easily make biscuits that you inscribe with an ancient writing system. We have a video on our YouTube channel that shows you how to make biscuits that are inscribed in Ugaritic cuneiform, for example. I really recommend this as an activity. We have a YouTube channel too, where you'll find some other interesting discussions of writing in the ancient world. If you're on Twitter, do follow us there as well. We have a very lively feed and you can get updates about the project too.
I want to finish by thanking you for your interest in the cruise project and in our teaching materials. I'd also like to finish with a plea. If you have tried out our teaching materials or if you have any thoughts or ideas about them, please do get in touch. That feedback is of huge value to us and we would really appreciate it. Thank you very much.